I'm Robin Savage, stand-up comic. Are you sick of the news getting pushed around by two sides, always saying the other side is wrong? You deserve to enjoy the news.
That's what's up, Robin. I'm your host, Mac James, from Stand Up for News. We're stand-up comics, and we tell the news. The news doesn't have any legs and can't stand up for its own self. Join us, special guests like local hero comics like Donnie Stopa, all the way to legends like Tommy Chong, every Thursday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. here on WTAN Radio.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Hi, this is Patsy with a Z. Welcome to Joy on Paper, a program for writers and those who dream of writing, and for everyone who wants to know the story behind the book. Coming to you from glorious Clearwater, Florida, the perfect place for writers to write and readers to enjoy a good book. And I am so thrilled today to welcome, she is my hero, and I am so happy to welcome to Joy on Paper, Donna Marie Hayes. Hi, Donna.
Hi, how are you?
Well, you are literally my hero. I think you are fantastic. You are really the epitome of why I do this program, because I love to bring to people, to my listeners and to readers, an author that they might not find just, strolling through the bookstore or swimming along the Amazon. But I want them to read your book. You are so great. The name of the book is These Broken Roads. And you are brilliant. You are beautiful. You are everything that I admire. And I am so jealous that you have achieved one of my biggest dreams. And that is to be, you had Times Square, for goodness sakes.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, you are an inspiration to everybody. I want my listeners to really pay attention to this book. And we're going to go through it. Donna's going to tell us about what brought her to this point. But what it is such a compelling story. It's your debut, memoir, but I know it's not your last book because you are a fantastic writer, just fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, wow. You've had quite a journey from a little girl, running around without shoes most of the time, I think. And now you are like gigantic. I mean, what is it? 60 feet tall sign. Are you out there dancing in the streets?
I am so grateful. I am just filled with gratitude when I think of just my childhood in Jamaica, West Indies. I lived there for the first 14 years of my life. And while there, you're right. We didn't have much. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have indoor plumbing. We weren't hungry, but we didn't have a lot of excess, if you will. And I moved to this country when I was 14 years old. And when I moved here, my mom was in a very, very strict church. So, it was very, very restricted. So as a teenager, I never went on a prom. I never went on a date. I never went to the movies. We didn't watch television. So, I grew up just wanting to connect and have love in my life. And I think that made me vulnerable to certain situations. But overall, I am very, very grateful for this journey.
And it's brought you to such a level. It's so exciting. I mean, it really is so exciting that you have this cabaret show and a book launch and everything is just happening to you. And tomorrow is your book launch. So where do you want to start? It is, I want to start. I know where I want to start. I want to start with, I like the quote that you have at the beginning of your book. And you are not the darkness. That was so good when you started that way. You are not the darkness.
Yeah.
You endured. You are the light that refused to surrender.
Yeah.
And that is you. And when I look at your photo and I see your glowing face and your beautiful smile, and I know that if I was in New York, I would be there on the street corner dancing with you, just celebrating because you, as I said, you've written this book with so much love and heart and soul, and you put so much into it, and you shared this. Some of it is really painful. I mean, it's really painful, but you are the light, and that's why it is so fantastic. I get tears in my eyes when I think about some of the stories. So where do you want to start and tell this story, which is really, I'll tell you, some of it is, well, there's a certain person in your life that if I saw him, I would really give him a big punch in the nose. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers to this book. If you want to, I mean, the impetus for writing the book was what happened to me. Was, I went through 2 very, very difficult marriages. Both were abusive. The second one was more emotional and physically abusive. And, just kind of finding my way out of that and rebooting. And I got away from it, and I took 8 years to really care for myself, to self-care. I even completed the marathon during that period of time. And I, did all of the things that would challenge me and just have me grow as a person. And when I thought I was ready, when I thought I had done the work and done the healing, I, went online. Someone suggested, and I went online and I met this individual who turned out to be someone that would just go around and scam women. And, unfortunately, I fell, I won't use the word victim, but, I was scammed by this individual. And, when it first happened and when I realized what happened, I wanted to write the book. I wanted to write the book because there was so much swirling around in me. I journaled, but I know I wanted to put it in a book. But as I started writing the book, it became less and less about him and more about my life in general, all the different pieces that led me here. He was only one of the pieces, the life traumas and the domestic violence and the bullying and the strict upbringing and abandonment. All those things came into play, and that's how I put the book together, because I thought that the reader needed to understand my journey, how I got here, and give them more context.
Well, I think every single woman, every woman who's looking for love, looking for companionship, should read this your opening page, which is called Our Time. And just reading that, I mean, I want to go out and hand it to all the women. I want to hand it to everyone, because I do have a girlfriend who fell for something very similar. Broke her heart, lost her money. So in a way, very similar to yours. But if women will read this first page, after that they will. You write it so beautifully. You say exactly how it started. It's scary. I mean, it's really, and it's one page. That's why when I read it, at first, I knew it was a memoir, and I said to myself, this is a memoir, but she's a novelist. I mean, she's a writer. She knows what she's doing. She can use words.
Thank you.
It's fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic writing. So if you can do this in one page, I mean, I would like to just print this page out and hand it to women. Go into restaurants. Read it before you do something, and commit yourself to something that can ruin your life. But in your case,
for sure, it didn't. I wouldn't allow it, because I am not going to wear his shame. I don't have anything to be ashamed of. That shame belongs to him. Let him wear it. he did what he did. But you know what's so interesting is after this happened, initially there was shame and I didn't want to share it because I was a very senior level managing director for an international investment bank. I'm a SAG actress, I'm a cabaret singer, and people know me. They have me on this, they have this particular image of me, and it was difficult for me to really talk about it until I decided, you know what, this could help someone else. And so I began talking to women at the gym and talking to women in the laundry room and talking to women on the street. And I found out that my story is far from unique. When you think of romance scams, you automatically think of online fraudsters hiding behind a screen, and you never meet them, you never see them. This individual immersed himself in my life, tattooed my name across his chest, and, you know, just wined and dined me, but it was all part of the grooming process. And I met women. I heard of a woman, who was a lawyer dating someone for 2.5 years. He ran away with $250,000 of her money. I met a woman who had retired, got engaged to someone. He stole all of her pension money. Now she had to go back to work. I met someone else who was in a long-term relationship with someone who stole all of her money, and she had to go into the shelter. There's a young lady whose boyfriend, you know, ran up all these credit cards in her name. She went into bankruptcy. So we now have to look at the people in our lives and, like, what are their agendas? Is this really someone that's there for you? And kind of look at some of the signs. Anything that doesn't feel right, just follow your intuition, because you're worth that. You're worth being happy. You have one life to live, and it should not be wasted on vermin like that.
Oh, that's so true. And what is so appalling, I mean, this happens to young women, it happens to middle-aged women, and it happens to so many senior women who are really naive about this. They can't, you know, they come from a different generation. And then when somebody comes along and says, "Oh, I'm the same religion," or "I believe in God," and they deliberately target women who believe in God. They deliberately target women who are good and who are giving, because they know those are the vulnerable ones.
Exactly. They look at, and you know, on our first date, for those who are listening, on the first date, he asked so many questions. He told me about himself, but he asked a lot of questions about me, about my childhood, about my job. And I interpreted that to mean that he was just interested in me. But it turns out that this was him just customizing his approach. He was getting information that he can customize his approach. And when he tattooed my initials across his chest in big black letters, of course, I thought that I was really in a relationship. Turns out he's been in a relationship with someone else all along who may have been a co-conspirator. That's yet to be confirmed. And, you know, some people say, well, how do you know that that's what he meant to do all along? What if, you know, he did love you, but then he just turned because he saw an opportunity? Within days after I realized he had ran away with my money, I went back on the website and found him with a different name, a different profile, and boldly enough wearing one of my running shirts, I might add.
I know. As we say in Yiddish, that's chutzpah. Oh boy. You know, and you're right. This book, that's why I think this book is so important. And I am just so happy that I have this opportunity to get to know you a little bit and get to help promote this book. And I'm glad you're out there. I'm glad you're there in Times Square. And there are so many women, especially in New York, I think, because women, they work hard. So many women work hard. They want, you know, to make something of themselves. They dedicate a lot of time to their career. They just have this dream that somebody will come along and appreciate their goodness and not take advantage of it.
And it's normal to want companionship. Yeah, it's normal. You know, it's absolutely normal to want to connect with people and have companionship, especially as you get older. You want that. And he knew I wanted that. And he positioned himself in such a way that I thought this was my person.
But, this isn't the only story in the book. As you said, there's so many layers to it. Yeah. There's a need. Yeah. There's this mother-daughter story that you needed love. You were such a good child, and you really suffered so much being raised. Yeah. In such a way that just wasn't loving, wasn't giving. And then on top of it, and I particularly want to talk about one of the chapters, because again, this is a chapter where something else happened to you, and another layer. And this is the one about 7 sunsets. Tell us about that story, because again, this formed you in so many ways.
Yeah, so 7 sunsets. So that chapter was about my relationship with my best friend. And, in the Jamaican culture, it's a lot of, we call it obia, which is another word for witchcraft or voodoo or black magic, whatever you may call it. And I had a best friend, and we were walking home from school, and she crossed the street and she got hit by a car and went into a coma, etc. But when she woke up, her grandmother convinced her to say that I pushed her. Because my parents were in the States, they assumed that they had money, and therefore they saw a payday. And I couldn't really understand why my friend did that, but the truth did come out, and her grandmother was not happy that she was exposed as a liar, and therefore said that I would be dead in 7 sunsets. Now, in my culture, it's very often that you see people go crazy or get sick or die, and as a little child, they would say it's because of obia. It's because of that. That's what happened. Someone put a spell on you, and that will happen to you. So I just remember being terrified, and I'm not sure if you read that whole chapter, the whole section with the chickens.
Oh, yes, I did.
And so that was very traumatizing, coupled with the fact, it was a betrayal. It was another person who left, like my best friend, and she ended up leaving. And that just stayed with me because I think it started to form just my feelings of abandonment and isolation and betrayal. And unfortunately, that followed me throughout.
Well, as I said, there's so many layers to it. And tell us how you got to the point where you were a very successful business person. How did you get there?
Yeah, so my second husband, he left me with a 1-year-old child, refused to help. And I will admit there were times we had no food. My friends would get food out of their cabinets and give to me just so I could keep her. Once I paid the babysitter, we had nothing. But I always had this courage and this need to have a life that I dreamt of as a little girl in Jamaica watching black and white television. I wanted to, when we later did get electricity, my grandmother got a little black and white TV, and we would watch that much later on. And I always wanted to have a life that I would be proud of. So I worked really hard. Someone gave me an opportunity to work in equity research, and I went on to get licensed as a Series 63 broker. And then I went from there, and I grew the corporate ladder in some of the major financial services firms. I made it all the way to a managing director, deputy head of human resources for the Americas, including Latin America. But it wasn't handed to me. It was a lot of hard work. And, I used my work ethic and my diligence and my need to succeed. Because I think when you come from nothing, you appreciate what you can have a lot more. When I came to this country and I saw all the things that I could take advantage of, I took advantage of it because it's humbling to know where I came from. And I think that's what propelled me and kind of moved me on to climb the corporate ladder to get to an MD level.
Wow. I mean, and for you, it was such an achievement, and one that young women look always to to do something with their lives, to make something of themselves. And I think you're just so inspiring in so many ways.
Thank you so much. And, after this scan happened and I started talking to a lot of women, I became an ICF certified coach in addition to the other things I was doing. And I formed a company called Distinguished Coaching. And I use it to really help women shed victimhood, because you don't have to live in that place. It happens to you, just pluck the lessons from the wreckage, use it. I call it repurposing your pain, and use it for your benefit to either encourage, motivate, and inspire others along the way.
What is the website for that?
DistinguishedCoaching.com.
DistinguishedCoaching.com. Oh boy. I think that's just a wonderful thing that you're doing. So tell us, we don't have much time. I wish I had more, but perhaps you can come back after this grand tour of yours. My goodness. Sure. So the cabaret show, tell us about this.
Yeah, so I am a cabaret singer in New York City. And when the book came out, I thought, what better way to celebrate the launch of my book than with a cabaret show. So I'm performing with the band tomorrow night at the Cutting Room. The first hour, I'll be singing like a 13-song set list. And then after that, I'll be signing books. Anyone who comes to the show will get a free copy of the book, which I will sign for them. I'm even willing to give away some comp tickets if anyone is interested. I can give away a couple free tickets. If there's any viewers who may be interested, they can just kind of reach out to me. I'm on Instagram at I am_Donna Hayes, or just Donna Hayes on Facebook, or on my website. I would love to.
Well, Donna, I think, as I said, you are my hero, my absolute hero. The name of the book is These Broken Roads, Scammed and Vindicated. One woman's story. It's beautifully written. I hope you're writing another book. Yes?
Okay. Well, I've been thinking about it.
You have to. You have too much talent to let it. Your descriptions. I just. It is so good. I get so excited when I read it. I go over parts of it where I say, "My goodness, the way you write the dialogue is terrific." I mean, everything about it. So you have to write another book. I insist upon it, because that way you'll be back here on Joy on Paper, and I can talk to you again.
Anytime.
To tell you the truth, there's not anything I would fly to New York City for, but I might just to see you, because I think you are an inspiration, and I think so many women will benefit from reading this book and realizing that they don't have to be victims. You have proven it. And you went through a horrific, compared to so many other people, difficult childhood, but you've come out the right way. And how do you pronounce your daughter's name? Sierra?
Sierra, Ciera.
Yeah, with a C. I thought that was cute. Yes. Well, she's very lucky to have a loving mom like you. And, you went through a lot, but you come out you've come out 60 feet tall. That's all I can say.
Thank you. I appreciate this so much. I appreciate it very, very much.
Okay. And so everybody can find Donna Marie Hayes on Instagram and all of those things. Find her, get this book, and
and come to the Cutting Room tomorrow night. CuttingRoomNewYorkCity.com.
Okay.
Love to have you.
Thank you again, Donna. You are a joy, a real joy in my life. You are why I do this program, so I can bring these wonderful books to people.
I am so honored. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Take care. Okay. Bye-bye.
Wow, what a woman. This is fantastic. Now, I can tell you, this might be her first book, but when we say somebody's a born writer, this is amazing. She writes so beautifully. Okay, we're going to have a book buzz from Devon Miller and a few commercials, and then we'll be right back. And I have a very
everyone,
special
it's
guest.
Devon Miller, author and illustrator of the Mr. Tickety Tack Clock children's book series, reporting for Joy on Paper with the latest on children's book buzz. September has come to an end, which means that the peak season for mangoes have come to an end for this year. And trust me when I say that our backyard has been loaded with them throughout the season. And due to all the mangoes that we would wake up to and see on the ground in our backyard, I couldn't help but to read the book Under the Mango Tree, written by Valdine Mark and illustrated by Sawyer Cloud. Inspired by the author's Caribbean childhood, Under the Mango Tree introduces readers to V and Sanaa, two best friends who love to spend their days under the mango tree. However, the challenge of separation is faced when V moves away. Valdine Mark wrote this book to focus on the joy of friendship that's found in childhood. Becoming #1 in children's Latin America fiction on the Amazon charts, this book is all about the power of friendship. I think you'll soon find me bringing some of my friends to read this book with me under the mango tree in our backyard. This is Devon Miller reporting for Joy on Paper. For more book buzz involving children's books and authors, head on over to radio-joyonpaper.com and click on Devon Miller's Book Buzzes. I think it's about time that I buzz out now.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Have you ever faced disaster? The Red Cross is always there for you. The Red Cross responds to a call for help every 8 seconds. They have never turned anyone down. Now they need your financial support so that they can be ready to help you when the need arises. Donate online at redcross.org. Thank you.
Are you an author, an artist, an inventor? Then you need to protect your valuable intellectual property. You need Larson & Larson. We have the experience and knowledge to help you with all of your legal needs, from processing trademark, copyright, or patent applications to negotiating licensing agreements and handling litigation. The attorneys at Larson & Larson in Largo, Florida can help protect you. Call us today for a no-cost consultation at 727-546-0660 or visit our website at larsonpatentlaw.com.
Do you dread being called on to speak at meetings or family functions? Have you envied those who can sway an audience with well-chosen words? Do you know that people who speak well earn more money, earn more rewarding careers? Gain the confidence to master any speaking situation. Toastmasters will allow you to find your voice. Go to toastmasters.org to locate the club nearest you.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
This is Patsy with a Z, and I am back with my next guest, and he has a very special book. It is really unusual and absolutely delightful. I'm so happy to welcome to Joy on Paper Jacob Harvey Redlow, and the name of his book is The Queen's Adventure. Hi.
Well, hello, Patsy.
Okay, can I call you Harvey?
Absolutely. That's the preferred name.
Okay. Well, Harvey, this is fantastic. This, I love poetry and I love history. I love sci-fi. I love illustrations because I love to draw myself. And you've got everything in this book that I love.
Now, that was a target I was hoping for most people.
Well, it is beautifully illustrated. It is a lovely story. It is unusual because it is you didn't follow any rules. You just said, I want to write this story. I want to get it down. And you did. And it's so much fun to read. It's not a very long book, and I want people to understand that when you get this book, you will be so amazed by both his writing and also by the lovely illustrations. You really found yourself a great illustrator.
Yes, I did. Alex Serrano, though he's passed, did a marvelous job on that and did artwork all of his life.
Well, it captures your story, which is, as I said, the name of the book is The Queen's Adventure. So how did you come out with the idea to do this? And as I said, you broke rules. So this is, people will say, well, you have to write this way, you have to write that way. But you just took sort of all of the things that you enjoy doing and put it into this book.
Okay, so the simple reach on this was that I lived through most of the time period when these two figures that are the protagonists in this story survived. I've survived both of them now. And so I recognized the story as it was building. And when I realized I could write poetry, I discovered that this story hadn't been told by anyone else. And definitely not in the reverse, like I've written this one, where the protagonists are not visible, but what their effect in the world is. And so I thought of writing that, and it just fell into place.
Well,
the flow was just what came naturally, one line to the next.
And each page, it's just delightful to read it because it, as you say, it flows. It really does flow. And that's the wonderful thing about it. As you're reading it, and I found myself reading a lot of it out loud because I love the sound of the words, the way you put the story together. And I was also thrilled that then you also did the Audible version yourself.
Now, yes, that was an interesting aspect. I decided that I wanted to do that, and I'd been reading some smaller poetry, single-piece poetry for Instagram. And so I decided I would go ahead and do this particular book. And it was just a pleasure to do that. And given that I have a bit of a varied voice, I can change it up considerably. I thought it was a good idea, and I even set up a sound booth in my home just to be able to do that book. It was fun.
Well, it is fun to narrate your own story, and you did it really, really very well because you have this passion for the story. So what do you want to tell? How do you want to explain to my listeners what they're going to discover from reading the story?
Now, there's a good one here. What they're going to find is that the story carries through difficult times. It carries people through difficult times and shows how that people are affected and how it affects, and it doesn't stay the same. It's always changing. But while this is going on, while life seems to be degrading in some ways and building in others, some hope comes up for a change that had never been there before. Something new that had just not been on the scene. And they find the story takes them to from where they're walking through hardship to where the hardship has finally come to a close and rebuilding is occurring. And so it carries a long way through the mire that life turns out to be, as well as the joy that it is as we pass.
Well, so it's coming. This book is coming after years of. Were you working on writing earlier in your life, or did you come to writing late in your life? How did that happen that you decided, I want to see my words on paper?
Okay, now that's an interesting one. I've been an artist in some form or another, whether it be with pen and ink, pencil, oil paints. And I had tried all of those arts, and I stumbled when I got to music. Couldn't do that one at all. But nothing held my interest. And about 1981, a story occurred to me that I knew I needed to put on paper. Now, I didn't know how to write. Don't forgive me, but I didn't know even vaguely how to write. So I put all the information on the paper, and then 20 years later, I'm learning. I'm taking stories from other folks, writing small biographies, so that I can get the practice of writing motion into my stories. And so I built that. I built the technique of writing up over the years, along with my reading. I've read thousands and thousands of books, not like you have, but thousands and thousands of books. Really good authors. And so while I'm not mentioning them, there's too many, like with you. And then I'd rewritten the story 4 or 5 times. Then I set it aside again, volunteered with the church for a few years, and then came back to learning how to study at the church. And when I found out that there was something wrong with my study, and when it was corrected, poetry just bubbled to the top. It was like the stew was finally done. And so I could write. And then from there, I even challenged myself to writing a number of poems in a given period of time, more than 100, and was able to get 100 day to day without a break. You know, and it was a really interesting challenge to do that, and have my life showing up on these papers that I've got in front of me.
Well, I think writing a story in verse, as you've done here, is very clever. It serves your imagination well. It is exactly what you got on paper is what you've imagined, and it is going to be so much fun for the readers to read this book. And I think also inspiring to everyone that you don't have to fit yourself in one particular category. You don't have to say, I have to write like this, I have to write like that, or like that person or that person. You are an individual. You can find your voice, you can find your style, and just go for it, because I believe everyone should actually try to write a book at least, because one of the things that you discover as you have, it is a craft that you have to hone, that you have to work at, and you get better. And then you get to the point where what you have now here is something that is really, it has so much style and so much individuality that it is stunning.
Well, thank you so much for that. I didn't expect those special words. I appreciate them. One of the things that I've learned in reading poetry and reading other lines of other genres of literature is that one can get stifled by form. And in poetry particularly, it's always led the arts of literature in that it built the forms that other people use. And so I wasn't afraid to step beyond and do something different than was standard. Though right now I'm actually practicing going back and looking at the older forms and seeing how I can make use of those as well. That's always a growth into literature, into writing. There's always something more to learn, a new way to use the grammar, recognizing the correct way to use it. So, Patsy?
Yeah, you know what I like is that, well, certainly you learned the grammar. I tell you, you're very. I mean, it is very. It's very well written. It's so enjoyable, and what I want to tell my listeners is you really can learn a lot from Harvey here, because Harvey has proven that it's never too late, and you can keep learning. You can keep going. Now he's written this in this style. He might write in a different style as he grows. Isn't it wonderful that no matter how old you are, you can still grow, and it's so good for your mind. In February, I had a guest, Eugenia Lovett West, and she was on my program, and she celebrated on Joy on Paper her 100th birthday. And
marvelous.
Yes, and that's what is really, when I talk about the joy on paper, that it gives you so much joy, getting your words down, sharing them, getting this opportunity to talk to people about your work. It's all part of having a richer and fuller life, isn't it?
It very much is. It very much is. One of the things that is true in writing a book or even a small poem is it's very rare that the author gets a recognition of what he's done. He doesn't get the effect it has on other people unless he speaks to a particular person about that. So I appreciate your feedback to such an amazing extent that it'll probably be months before I get someone else to respond and tell me what was right or wrong with the book. I'm sure I will get some of those. We all do.
But the thing is, it's part of growing, part of keeping yourself mentally active. Now you have a really great book, beautifully illustrated, beautifully written, a gorgeous cover. I love the cover. It's really stunning. So now you have something to work with. Now you have something to go out there and meet people, talk to groups of people. There's a lot that goes on, for an author. It's not just writing the book and putting it online. You have to go out there and promote it. And I hope that you can find the joy in that process too.
I'm beginning that. As a matter of fact, I'm in the process right now of building the Facebook page for the book. And I also have a separate glossary for the I'll get the uhs out of the way. Pardon my stammer there. For the audio book, there is a website on Blogger that gives the glossary for that, like is in the back of the softcover book.
Yeah, I was going to say, I love that you put the glossary in the back of the book. It's really great. It's because it's, again, for all of you listeners, it's coming up to NaNoWriMo, which is the National Novel Writing Month. And that is an opportunity to write a novel with 50,000 words. And it's done mostly as a challenge. You take upon yourself this obligation to write a book in a month, but it doesn't have to be, you don't have to do an organization. You can just do it yourself, just like Harvey did. He set himself a goal to write so many poems in so many days. And that's sometimes you need that little bit of deadline. Writers actually work hard for deadlines, but it's good training, isn't it?
Absolutely. It was a challenge. I mean, each day to come up with something new to consider and share, and then to sit down and put the words in, correct them, make it balance, establish the meter, make sure it's solid. It's such an interesting aspect. And it was a growth, like I said, a growth cycle. I've just enjoyed that too.
Well, you've done a marvelous job. And I like you use the word solid, because it is actually a word that I always use when I get a book and I read it, and I don't have to worry. I will say, this is solid. That means I know that the author knows what he or she wants to say and knows that they have that talent to put it down on paper and to share it. And it's a strength. When you use the word solid, it is something that is there. And you're going to, as you said, it takes time to get recognition. You don't know if you're going to get recognition, but if you recognize that you've done something great, it changes your personality and your life.
No, that is so true, because the first one we have to satisfy is ourselves.
Exactly.
In what we say. And then if we can do that well and put it into the communication form, get it across, then we win.
And Harvey, you are a winner. And I hope that one of the things, as I said, nowadays, perhaps the most difficult thing for an author is to market their work. And it is difficult to get out there. But doing the Facebook page, what other social media you decide to do, including a website. But in the end, so much of success in the book world is people to people, that you have to get out there and meet people, go to book events, talk to library groups, talk to women's, tea party groups, get out there. And it's word of mouth that so often takes an author to a new level.
It certainly has that opportunity. And I've actually done Toastmasters for a time in order to make it so that I could speak a little better. And it does help, by the way. And I wanted to bring up something to you regarding this particular book. It's not the only one. It's part of a series. I have the prequel to this already completely written and edited. It'll be being published sometime next year.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because then I know I'll have you back, and we'll, of course, I will have you back, and we will talk about it, because I think that, again, you are inspiring. You're telling people, yes, you can do it. You don't have to think that, there's any age restriction, there's any restrictions. You can get out there and you can start writing. You get your words on paper, and just that process alone is exciting. And I hope that people will get this book. As I said, it's a not a very long book, but they will enjoy it. It's a nice. When I looked at the cover, the combination of the biplane and the ship, and it's by Jacob Harvey Redlow, Redloh, and it's called The Queen's Adventure, and it is a fun read. It is I love a read where you're reading it and then you go back and you say, yeah, I want to go over that again. I want to understand it. I want to really take it in and get the idea that the author wants me to appreciate. And you've done a wonderful job, Harvey.
And thank you so much for that, and for the opportunity to speak with you today. This is just amazing.
Well,
my work is intended to inspire and to give people the notion that they can do something to make a better tomorrow for themselves.
Well,
and all my poetry has that aspect.
And it is so good. I'm telling everybody, get this book. It's lots of fun to read. And Harvey's going to be back here next year when he has the next book. And meanwhile, I will put our interview up on my website. And then as soon as you have your own website and Facebook and that kind of information, I'll add that. Okay?
Very good. And I will add your link to my website so that people know where you are.
Okay. Well, Harvey, it's been a joy to talk to you. I'm just very honored to know you and to promote your book, The Queen's Adventurer. And this has been quite an adventure for you.
Oh, hasn't it? And thank you very much, Patsy. It's wonderful to meet you.
Okay, great to talk
and our audience.
Okay, great talking to you. Bye-bye now, Harvey. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. You know, this is exactly what today was an exactly perfect day because I was thinking about, joy on paper. I love, of course, talking to all the global best-selling authors. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to have Andrew Grant, who is doing the Jack Reacher books now with his brother Lee Child. So Andrew Grant is going to be on, and he's a global best-selling author. And it's a thrill. I love him. And his wife, Tasha Alexander. And as you listeners know, they guest hosted Joy on Paper. They did a lot to promote Joy on Paper. And I love to talk to them. I love to talk to all the sort of famous people that I talk to, like Jamie Lee Curtis and all of these, and the Poet Laureate of the United States. But what is really exciting is to bring you unusual books that you might miss because they don't get a lot of promotion. And that's a problem, one of the big problems. And I'm hoping at some point to be able to do something that will really help authors with their marketing. But Donna Marie Hayes, her book, These Broken Roads, is really beautifully written and a very heartfelt and touching story about somebody who had a very sad childhood, very sad. At points I was crying because I just wanted to hug her because she was such a sweet little girl and nobody was hugging her and she was just suffering so much. But she found strength and she found the will not to give up. And now look at that. She's Times Square. Oh my goodness. I tell you, ever since I never forget the movie, which I loved at the time. And when you think about it, it's a old movie from Hollywood. And it was it was called It Should Happen to You with Judy Holliday and Jack Lemmon. And Judy Holliday buys billboards all over New York City. It's a lovely movie. If you haven't seen it, you have to watch it. It's called It Should Happen to You. And I remember at the time when my mother liked the movie. She liked Judy Holliday, and whenever it was on television, she would watch it. And I think she wanted the same thing. She wanted to be on a billboard in Times Square, and I wanted to be on a billboard in Times Square. I don't but to know that Donna Marie Hayes is on a billboard in Times Square, and she has a big debut tomorrow, her cabaret show, and you can check her out on her Instagram page and ask for free tickets if you happen to be in New York. And she is lovely, and I'm just very, very thrilled that I got to talk to her. And of course, Harvey, just again, a thrill to talk to these authors who have found joy on paper. Because remember, one of the things I always tell you is one of the joys of life is to see your words on paper or to hear them in an audible book. And Harvey did it himself. My goodness, a really great job. Or to see your book turned into a streaming video on perhaps a Hallmark channel, like I'm hoping for Carol J. Perry, or like for Andrew Child, my goodness. It is streaming like crazy, and the new Jack Reacher series is coming up. And you never know, and you won't know unless you start writing. And you don't have to worry, and you can do it at any age. Start and just get your words down on paper. Say something nice to somebody today. I will say something nice to Big Ed in the control room. Thank you, Big Ed. Okay, everybody, have a wonderful day. And he saluted me. I saluted him. And I'm out of here. Bye-bye.